My name is Lacey Wellington. You don't know me, but by the end of this, you will. And trust me, what I'm about to tell you, well, you'll never look at life the same way again. It all started when I, Lacey, got tired of living in the world of private jets, designer clothes, and perfect manicures. Tired of being the Wellington heiress, always followed by whispers and expectations. At 17, most girls dream of having the life I lived. But when you're born into money, sometimes all you want is to feel normal. So, I decided to try it. The whole regular life thing. No bodyguards, no chauffeurs. Just me. I remember it vividly. I stepped out of my family's mansion one early summer morning. My hair was tied up in a messy bun, and I wore faded jeans I found stuffed at the back of my closet, a far cry from my usual designer outfits. With trembling hands, I shoved my credit cards into a drawer and walked out with nothing but a little cash and a prepaid phone. The air smelled different that day, crisp, like I could finally breathe. I smiled, feeling a rush of freedom. No one knew who I was in this small town outside of the city. That's what I wanted. For the first time, I rode the bus. I could hear it rattling beneath me as I held on to the metal bar, feeling the roughness of real life. People sat around me, some tapping away on their phones, others lost in their thoughts. I was invisible. It was perfect. I found myself in a local cafe later that afternoon. The kind of place that didn't even know what artisan meant, but the coffee was decent. I ordered a plain black coffee and sat in a corner, watching people walk by the window. That's when he walked in. He wasn't like the guys back at my prep school. His hair was tousled, and he wore a plain black t-shirt, a little ripped at the edges, and jeans that had seen better days. His name? Luke. I didn't know that yet, though. But I'd soon find out. He grabbed a coffee, same as mine, and sat a few seats away. Our eyes met for the briefest second before he looked away. That was the moment I realized I wasn't invisible anymore, at least not to him. I started to come to that cafe every day. Every single day, we'd sit there, both of us silent, both of us pretending not to notice the other. Until one day, the air between us seemed too charged to ignore. He finally looked up and said, "You're not from around here, are you?" I smiled. What gave me away? The days flew by in a blur after that. Luke and I started hanging out. I found myself laughing more, feeling alive in a way I never had before. He didn't know who I was, didn't care. To him, I was just Lacey, the girl who loved iced coffee and long walks at sunset. And for a while, I forgot who I really was. I forgot about the Wellington name, the money, the expectations. But peace doesn't last long, does it? It was a Wednesday when everything went wrong. The cafe was unusually quiet. I was sitting with Luke, sipping on iced tea, when she walked in. Eliza, a girl I'd known from one of those rich kids' charity galas. She was from my world, and one look at me told me everything I needed to know. I felt my heart drop. She sauntered over, her heels clacking against the floor. She didn't sit down. She just stood there, her arms crossed, a smirk playing at the edges of her lips. Wow, Lacey Wellington, hiding out in a small town like some normal girl? Her voice dripped with venom. I felt the cafe get quieter, like everyone was listening in, even the walls. Luke stared at me, confusion clouding his eyes. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Eliza leaned closer, her eyes locking onto mine. You can't hide forever. Everyone knows who you are. Then she glanced at Luke, a smug smile spreading across her face. Didn't you tell him? The world seemed to slow down. Luke's expression shifted. That easygoing, carefree look disappeared. I could feel the distance growing between us, even though he was sitting right across from me. Lacey Wellington, he asked, his voice tight. I didn't know what to say. How could I explain that the life I had been trying so hard to escape had just caught up with me? After that, everything fell apart. Luke stopped texting. He stopped showing up at the cafe. I found myself walking the streets alone, feeling the weight of my old life pressing down on me. I wanted to scream, to rewind time, but I couldn't. I sat in my empty room one night, staring at my phone, waiting for a message from him that never came. That's when I realized something. Money couldn't buy everything. Not love. Not trust. But I wasn't ready to give up on him. One rainy evening, I found him. He was sitting by the lake, the same spot we used to hang out, the place where we talked about dreams and plans, where everything felt real. I walked up, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear the rain. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice shaking. "I should have told you." He didn't look at me. "Why didn't you?" I swallowed hard. "Because I wanted to be someone else, even if it was just for a little while. I didn't want to be Lacey Wellington. I just wanted to be a girl, like everyone else." Luke sighed, finally turning his eyes to meet mine. They weren't cold, but they were guarded. "You could have trusted me." "I know," I whispered. "And I want to. If you let me." The rain was relentless, but in that moment, I didn't care. All that mattered was him. After what felt like an eternity, he nodded slowly. "Okay." The next few weeks were different. Luke knew the truth now, but somehow, it didn't change the way we felt. We still met at the cafe. We still laughed. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. More real than anything I had ever known. And as for Eliza, she went back to her world, the same world I had tried to leave behind. Let her have it. I had found something better. My name is Lacey Wellington. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I know who I really am.